Yo, what's going on guys, welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the worst 6 gadgets in the game right now. So these are some of the gadgets that you definitely don't want to be picking up in the shop or just not using inside of Brawl Stars. So before we jump into today's video, make sure you're using the credit code in the shop, that'd be greatly appreciated. And without further ado, let's jump into the list. Alright guys, so jumping into this 6th worst gadget in the game right now, in my opinion, it's going to be the Leonclone Projector gadget. So although it's not like completely useless in comparison to all the other gadgets in the game right now, I just feel like it offers nowhere near as much value. So the only good ways you're going to get value out of this gadget is against like single shot brawlers. So I have seen in few instances, well, this is probably a few months ago now, but even when Lollipop Drop was like so OP, this gadget was being used in Shooting Star a few times just because it was good against like tanking up Piper shots, for example. But other than that, not really the best. Only really good at like scouting where the enemies are in game modes like Showdown, so it might be okay in Showdown, but in 3v3 modes it's just really not that great at all. So it's really easy just to kill this clone. And then also you got to compare it to his other gadget, Lollipop Drop, literally going to be used every single time in competitive. So yeah, there's no real use of this gadget in 3v3 modes in my opinion. So you're not really going to be the best. It's always been a story with Clone Projector, right? Not really a gadget that's got any type of love. So that's going to be the 6th worst gadget. Let's hop into number 5. Alright guys, so jumping into the 5th worst gadget in the game right now, we have Beau with his Tripwire gadgets. So this gadget used to be one of the best gadgets in the game, but ever since it got that huge nerf, not really been the best. So there's only a few circumstances where this gadget's going to be any good. It's only going to be good in those lucky situations where the enemy just happens to walk into all 3 of the mines, or it's sometimes okay in game modes like Brawl, or just game modes where you want to break open all the walls like straight away. It can be pretty good to open up the walls. Other than that, not really used entirely too much. And I just feel like for the most part, when you do use this gadget, you're just going to be wasting all your mines. Like, you're not going to really hit many of the shots. Maybe at low trophies, it can be really easy to hit all of the mines onto the opponent, but at high level, it just feels like you're wasting your mines every single time you want to use this gadget. So again, not really the best. So you got to be careful with this gadget. Of course, it's not really been touched ever since there was like a Tripwire meta. Literally, this gadget was being used. Well, Beau was like the best brawler in the game just literally because of the gadgets. So gotta be really careful at buffing this one. I feel like it should be a slight buff because it's just been pretty much useless ever since. So I'm just going to use the gadget here, try and get a lucky stun. I actually get a lucky stun there on the M's, which I probably wouldn't have otherwise. So sometimes you can get pretty lucky, but sometimes it can be really hard to get value. So it's kind of high risk, high reward, right? So that's maybe why I'm maybe underrating it just a little bit. But I feel like overall it's at least a bottom 10 in my opinion. Okay, so 1 minute left into the game. I'm hoping we can finish off the game here. So again, trying to break out. I'm just going to use my gadget to try and connect some mines. Again, I'm going to waste all my mines. I'm not going to get any value back or any like charge to my next super. So that can be a real big problem with this gadget, is that you're going to get no charge of it. And I just feel like, again, like his other gadget with Beau, at least like you can place it behind a wall in a really passive position, at least get more charge to your next mines and keep cycling over and over again. I feel like that's one of the best things about Beau, is his constant zoning with his mines. If you're cycling them over and over again, it can be hard for the enemies to really get in any position on the map. So I'm hoping we can score this, passing it to our Daryl, and that's going to be a goal. So yeah, Beau really not been strong in the meta for a long time. I'm hoping he won't be like a gadget brawler like he's always kind of been whenever he's been meta, but he does need some love, right? So I'm hoping they do something with him. So I'm going to place my mines here. I'm hoping we can actually keep this one out, and that's going to be a win. So that's going to be the 5th worst in my opinion. Let's hop into number 4. Alright guys, so jumping into the 4th worst gadget in the game right now, we have Max with the Sneaky Sneakers gadget. So this gadget had the potential on release to be like really insane. I thought this gadget was going to be pretty strong, but ever since it's released, it's pretty much sucked, because the main reason why is a lot of the time you end up just dying before you go back. Or like a brawler like Max, you're only really going to charge your super a little bit. Like, she doesn't really output a lot of damage, and there's no real game modes where this gadget can really thrive on. And her other gadget is just so good. So I'm hoping they can somehow buff this gadget to make it really strong, or at least better than the other gadget, because again, it has the potential to have some some good value out of it. But I just feel like, again, I just never get the value out of it, and I never ever seen this gadget used in competitive like ever. And the only times that people use it is probably for a little bit of troll, or just to try and at least surprise the enemy a little bit. But once you see them use this gadget, you just know where they're going back to at all times, and you're only going to get like a couple of shots of extra value, right? Whilst the other gadget you can get so much value out of. So that's going to be one of the worst gadgets in the game. Let's hop into the next one. Alright guys, so jumping into the third worst gadget in the game right now, we have Ruffs with his air support gadget. So this gadget looked like a potential to be crazy broken when this first came out. But again, another gadget which I've just never seen at all. So I'm hoping in the future, it looks like a toxic gadget, right? I don't want it to be too strong, but the sandbags have just been by far the better gadget for Ruffs every single time. So I'm hoping in the future they do actually some balancing with gadgets. We've not really seen any gadgets get buffed or nerfed for a little bit, or they do and it's only like a small buff or a small nerf. So like I said, I'm hoping there's going to be like a big balance change with some gadgets and star powers soon, because it feels like a lot of them haven't really been touched or they haven't been balanced yet, when there's some clear disbalance with a lot of them. And this is just a huge example again, the disbalance. Like, it's by far the worst gadget in comparison to his other gadget. It just looks flashy, right? It looks like it's going to do a lot to the enemy, but it just ends up just doing nothing. It just zones them out a little bit, but then they kind of realize that even if they go into these rockets, it's only going to deal like 900 damage or something. I don't think it deals much damage. Again, it looks pretty in the sky, but it doesn't really do anything to the enemy team. So I'm wondering what kind of buff you could actually make to this. Probably just make the rockets fall a little bit quicker, right? But you don't want to make it too toxic, because it could be another scenario like the Be Rattled Hive gadget, where it used to just take out the whole enemy team within one click of a button. But that's going to be the third worst gadget in the game. And let's hop into number 2. Alright guys, so jumping into this second worst gadget in the game right now, we have Carl with the Heat Ejector gadget. So this gadget seems like it's been in the bottom 6 in the meta since eternity, since its release. Basically, it's just been so bad. They've tried to rework it a few times, and still it's not been anywhere near the meta. So I'm kind of wondering how they can make this gadget actually viable. Will they just completely rework it? They need to do something right, because it's just clearly one of the worst gadgets in the game, and it kind of sucks for a brawler just to have one really good gadget and one really bad one. We want a gadget, well, we want 2 gadgets that are both usable in some way. I just feel like this one is just completely trash. For the most part, you're not even going to hit the opponent and setting them on fire. It looks pretty though, to be fair. Whenever you fire it off, it does look pretty cool, and especially with the additional range recoil, it's got like a small indirect buff, but I just still feel like it's not really the greatest and doesn't really do anything. It just tickles them. Like, I can set this guy on fire, but it only deals 1200 damage, which isn't really a lot. Like, you can basically set someone on fire with Stu's fire, and I think near enough do the same damage with just his super, like his little trail that it puts beyond. So like a whole gadget just doing that little bit of damage, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's just not a good gadget whatsoever. So yeah, it's actually got a lot of questions about Carl in the meta in my other video, my best 6 brawlers video. I don't think like he's anywhere near the meta, just to answer that question. Like, he's actually really, like, he's decent. He's definitely improved. Like, he was one of the worst brawlers in the game easily, but he's definitely got some viability. So I'm glad I can somewhat pick him now in the meta, but I don't think he's anywhere close to being one of the best brawlers in the game. Just too many counters for him, and there's just a lot of different brawlers that can use the speed gear and get close to him. So maybe if we see like a big speed gear nerf, he might be pretty good, but overall he's just one of those decent brawlers. Probably would rate him around midway in the meta. So hope we can get some decent value with his super. I mean, he is a decent brawler, right? You can get some good value out of his damage gear, and his super is pretty insane. That range is pretty good as well on those long range maps. So that's going to be the second worst gadget. Let's hop into the very worst. Alright guys, so jumping into the worst gadget in the game, no surprises again. I feel like this was the exact same one I did over months ago. It is Poco with his protective tunes gadget. So at least this is a good example where the only time I can see it being usable on is against Crow. It's probably the only usage for it, for his slow toxin gadget. You can actually use this gadget to get rid of the effects. So I did do that on Mortis. His effects are gone, but I feel like this is the only situation where you can get value out of it. So it's actually, funny enough, somehow I'm able to replicate the only bit of value you're able to get with it. But against every other brawler in the game, it doesn't really do anything right. It's so situational, and whenever it's kind of spoken about in terms of balancing, I think the guy that balances stuff does say like it's supposed to be one of those things where you can pick it to actually counter the enemies. So again, like in a draft format, say the enemy is going to crow, you can potentially run this gadget, but I just still feel like it's one of those things where the other gadget is just still better. So it kind of doesn't make sense for it to be in the game, in my opinion. You know, at the thought of it, it might have seemed like a good idea, but after testing it out, it's kind of clear to see that this gadget just won't really have a place in the Brawl Stars meta ever, in my opinion, unless there's a bunch more slow features in the game. So a bit disappointing that Poco just doesn't have any use for his second gadget, but I'm hoping the devs do see some sense soon and can see like this gadget still isn't one of those gadgets where you can actually bring it out to counter the enemies. So a good example of which it actually does is Piper's gadget. So you might think that Piper's gadget isn't really the best, but at least you can switch to her knockback gadget when in draft format. Say for example you're facing like a Rosa and a Mortis, it's going to be actually worthwhile bringing that gadget out. But still with Poco, even if you have 3 characters that's slow, it's just not worth it. You'd rather just get that insane healing for you and your teammates rather than just getting rid of a slow effect just for a couple of seconds, right? It's just not the best usage whatsoever. So 5 seconds left, hoping we can finish off the video with a dub, getting some insane value out of my Screeching Solo. Screeching Solo is actually so fun to play, but that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think of my list in the comment section below. I've not done this for a while. A few people asked for this video, but I just don't think it's really changed too much, right? They don't really change too much about gadgets, so I'm hoping balance changes to come, that they actually sort out gadgets. I don't want gadgets to be broken, but they do need some love, especially some of them like this protective tunes. So yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.